So it went down 41%. But what people need to realize here is that what drove gold and silver up, the fundamentals haven't changed. That's why, this didn't really bother me that much. For the year, gold started the year at 43.50, and we're at 46.50. So basically about 10% up. Silver started the year at 70. You mentioned it's 79. That's over 10% up for the year. And the HUI started the year at 700, is at 768, again, up 10% for the year. And Newmont, one last number, started the year at 100, and it's at 111, up 10% for the year. So if you didn't buy stocks in January, you're up 10%, which is a pretty good month. Plus, all the fundamentals are still in place. So I always say this has nothing to do with silver. It's all about gold. So gold went all the way to $5,600. I mean, gold was absolutely on fire. Gold had to correct. I mean, it was going straight up, and there really was no rhyme or reason for it. There was some issues around, maybe Trump was going into Iran, maybe he was going to bring in a dove, but it was going absolutely bonkers. But I think the main reason it was going bonkers is because there's so much trading going on, so much leverage. People are just cannot get enough of it. They love to trade, they love to use margin, and so gold got pushed all the way up to 5,600 last week. We had 2% days. It was absolutely going absolutely nuts. So Friday was the Friday close. So it was a combination of these factors of massive leverage and Friday close, and he picked up a bit of a hawk with Warsh. It was kind of, all these issues came together, but in tandem with that, I think something we can't prove is that there was something, there were some players behind the scene that wanted gold and silver to go lower. But a lot of this big, massive correction was the traders took it on the chin, and people that got, and I told people, if you're going to buy a bull market and you're going to buy, a trending market, buy a lot of band-aids because you're going to get some knife cuts. So there's a lot of people that bought this month that have paper losses. But on the whole, I'm pretty happy to the start of the year. I'm actually more bullish this year than I was last year. I say the winds that are back, and people are like, how can the wind be are back? Well, we're up 10% and we still have the fundamentals.
There's a lot of people that are all of a sudden very smart on silver and gold. 200 silver, 300 silver. I haven't heard of half of these people. Don and I have been doing this for 25 plus years each. I bought my first silver in 2000, right? So my largest position going in December 31st is physical silver in my portfolio, 17.8%, which is publicly posted, right? So like we don't just talk what we're talking about. Don and I are two of the people that actually have skin in the game, a lot of skin in the game. And so, this is painful. However, anytime you see a move like silver's move over the last couple of months, it was basically like a hockey stick.
Silver crashed 25%, but insiders reveal it was orchestrated while 49 million ounces physically vanished from COMEX. Signaling an imminent Q1 shortage, the fundamentals remain strong. With silver still up 10% year-to-date due to a new global monetary system, and U.S. debt crisis, analysts predict silver hits 150 to 175 in 2026, and name specific mining stocks to buy now for the coming explosive move.
What people need to know is the backdrop of why gold, and John's absolutely right. Gold is the leader, and gold will be the leader. Gold's a massive market, but central banks aren't buying silver; they're buying gold. And people need to realize why they're buying gold. Since this all changed when the Ukraine war started in 22, and then 2 years. It took basically 2 years for the world to basically realize what had just happened. And what had just happened was basically a new monetary system started getting created. That new monetary system. So the BRICS was the only international trade platform available globally. It was the only one. So when they kicked Russia out, Russia basically had to figure out a way. Okay, we need another way. So they're part of the BRICS. So they went over to China and said, "Hey, we need your help." And Xi said, "Okay, let's be friends. Let's work together here." And so it took about 2 years. And then in February of 24, exactly 2 years later, gold broke out from 2000 and went up $3,500. And it's all because of this new monetary system in tandem with the US economy no longer, and Ray Dalio goes over this really eloquently. He does a really good job. The US economy no longer can rely on its debt markets to basically subsidize its standard of living. So our standard of living has went up on the backs of foreigners. So we basically export inflated currency where they basically, their bonds lose money, and we benefit from that. And we use that to have these huge deficits that we roll it over and over and over again to subsidize our standard of living. That is breaking. Wall Street today, we hit an all-time high today. So it's Monday, February 2nd. We hit an all-time high today in the S&P 500. We're trading 69.80, and the all-time high was 69. All-time high. And the economy is actually in dire straits. It's literally like one Jenga peg away from falling on its face. I'm calling this year the last year of American greatness. And by the end of this year, everybody will see exactly what I was talking about.
Sure. I think gold is the most resilient asset. Gold leads and everything else follows. And if you don't believe me, look at silver's move and how aggressively it caught up to gold's move. Look at palladium, PALL. Look at platinum, PPLT, copper, CPER. The ETFs all look the same. They all took off after gold. And so, yes, gold is very important to the overall commodities complex. But an 800-point move down would scare and shake most people. I'm not scared at all. This is a buy the dip moment, and I'll tell your listeners why. When you look at what the large banks have done over the last 12 to 13 months, they started to come out very aggressively last January and started to say, "Hey, 4,000 gold, 4,500 gold," right? Like this was like amazing to me, and I know I said this on your show, which is this is bullish. This is not a contrarian move here. This is like Bank of America, Citi, Goldman, JP. These are huge institutions saying, "Oh, by the way, we've been short for years or playing manipulative games with the metals, and all of a sudden we're bullish." Like that was like a very big like all-in moment for us in January of last year, which has turned out to be amazing. Now let's look at what's happening over the last few weeks. JP Morgan goes to 6,000 gold. Bank of America goes to 6,000 gold, etc. Like they're not pulling their numbers here in the last 2 days. They're just still saying, hey, look, this is 6,000 an ounce. And if it gets to 50, 55, I'm going to be loading up the boat on physical silver. I've already talked to my broker about buying a significant amount more at that price point, and I'd be buying silver equities, and I'll give you a few names. Don knows a lot of these names, likes them as well. First one would be Aftermath Silver, AAGFF in the States, AAG in Canada. They don't have like 100 or 200 million of silver equivalent. They have like 800 million plus of silver equivalent ounces. And why? Because they have 144 million ounces of silver, and they have all this manganese and they have copper, etc. And they're in places like Chile and Peru, which to me are on the upswing. If you look at what happened with Peru, I mean, Castillo has been jailed many, many months ago. Peru's already turned. Chile had elections mid-December, right? 6 weeks ago, and they went right. So we like Chile better than we did 6 weeks ago. So I think Aftermath is very well positioned here, and they just did a $20 million raise, of which $10 million was Eric Sprott. So that's not getting sold, right? I mean, he owns 30% of the company, which is, I think, his third largest silver junior position. Another one would be BlackRock Silver, US based, BKRRF in the States, and BRC in Canada. Don and I interviewed Andrew. This is quickly becoming like a closer to production story than I think either of us thought. And he commented on our interview, we could be, like let's say 2 months ago, he was saying 18 months from then, so 16 months from now, we could see hard hats, on the project. Like they could make a construction decision. That's one of the only silver or gold stocks that's going to benefit under Trump's regime because they are within that window.
So first of all, I want to say that I own all three of those stocks that John mentioned, and I like all of them. So I'm going to do 6 producers and 6 developers. Now, these producers, I think right now is a great time I call this buying to the bottom. Like Hekla's off, I don't know, 20% here. And the way you buy to the bottom is you basically take a position. If you're fully allocated, then you're fine. But if you're under allocated in any of these producers, basically you take a position, and then if it falls 20% or 25%, you buy more. But falls another 20 to 25, you buy more. Chances are it's not going to drop 50% from here, but you're probably going to get at least one more buy to the bottom. Okay, so the six are the 6%. They're all silver names, by the way, because I think silver is going to go to 150 to 175 this year. So that's a massive move in silver. And if it happens, these miners are going to just do unbelievably well. So start with Coeur, and then Coeur and Heckler are kind of at the top of the list. Then Pan American and First Majestic, and then Endeavor. Now, those are my top 5 silver names. Those are I call them my Mormon list. You can marry all of them. In January, there were 9,800 contracts delivered. That was 49 million ounces. So that was very unusual. January is not considered a major month. Plus, historically,
are we talking gold or silver?
Silver deliveries. Yeah, 9,800 contracts at 5,000 each. 49 million ounces were delivered in January, which is kind of an unheard of level. Historically, deliveries usually don't happen on COMEX. Usually it's just a trading market. Very few people take deliveries, like 50 million ounces maybe a year delivered. And we had that done in 1 month. And last year there was 400 million ounces were delivered. We're going to break that again this year. And if you look at how much is registered, there's not enough. There's 125 million ounces. And by the end of March, it's going to be really whittled down. Now, here's the kicker is that you have to understand that there's only 800 million ounces of silver that are mined every year. So that's the new inventory, plus about 200 million ounces recycled, 1 billion ounces. That's kind of inventory that we have. And then everything else has to come out of above ground stocks. So of that 1 billion ounces, about 70% of it, 700 million ounces is required by the fabricators. So all those deliveries that are taking place today, that's people that basically say that there's not enough inventory somewhere else. I got to go to the COMEX and get it. So these inventories, now we have like 200, 300 million ounce deficits. Those deficits are for investors. The mine supply is fine for all your fabricators, but there's not enough for the investors. And so basically what's happening is the gold comes out of the ground and a lot of the investors are soaking it up. And then the people that need it, like the solar panel companies, they're going and taking deliveries. So basically we have a fight over physical silver right now. And that's not going to stop. And keep an eye on February. February is supposed to be a very slow month. And then March, I think March is going to be massive. And so that's a thing to keep an eye on. I do these conversations with Grok. You can have these long conversations. I have these long conversations, and my thought was that we're not going to have a shortage until Q2 or Q3. A problem. Grok says it's going to happen in Q1, because Grok looks back at all of these deliveries that have been happening in COMEX, and it looks at the silver that's coming in that it can resupply with, and it basically says, nope, Don, it's going to blow up in Q1. So what Grok is basically expecting a massive delivery here in March. If it happens, I don't think this is a nothing burger. I think it's going to push silver prices higher between now and the end of March. That was the comment I wanted to make. So as far as my website, what I do,